Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the pre-bid conference for PSE01, Public Safety Equipment and Two-Way Radio. My name is Susan Alpole, and I'm the events manager here at OSD. Before we start the meeting, I just want to go through some of the webinar logistics. We are recording today's presentation. Use the control panel to select your audio mode, and to keep the control panel open, you'll click View Menu and uncheck Audio Hide Control Panel. Click Audio in the control panel to select the phone call option and receive dial-in information. And we do have participants muted for today. And if you'd like a copy of the handouts, you can download that from the handout section on the right. So essentially, today's session is an informational session. The PSE01 sourcing team will address bidder questions through Combis. So you'll submit questions using the Combis Q&A tab. And we have a job aid available. There's a link here in the handouts that you can download that. And if you do need assistance, you can also contact the OSD help desk. And as referenced in the RFR, the deadline for submission of questions in Combis is August 17th at 3 p.m. And then they do expect to answer the questions by August 24th. So today's presenters include Melissa Nazaro. She's the Interoperability Project Advisor for the Executive Office of Technology, Services, and Security. And then we have Dan Billings. He's the Sourcing Manager here at OSD in the Strategic Sourcing Unit. And then we have Catherine Thomas. She's one of the trainers here in the OSD Training Unit. And we have Dmitry Nikolaev, who's the Director of Programs, Policy, and Reporting for the Supplier Diversity Office. Today's agenda will be an overview of the PSE01 RFR. They'll go over the bid package checklist, go through statewide contract vendor requirements, and then Catherine will go through some of the training resources. Dimitri will cover the supplier diversity program, and then we have a resource slide. So now I'll hand it over to Melissa.
Good morning. Susan, you're able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Good morning, my name is Melissa Nazaro. I am with the Executive Office of Technology, Services, and Security, as mentioned in the Interoperability Project Advisor role. I'm a subject matter expert here working with Dan Billings from OSD on this contract. Just to give some high-level information about PSE01. PSE is a new contract category, public safety equipment. It's the acronym. This is the first contract under this category, hence the 01. It is going to be covering public safety equipment, supplies, and services in a way that the FIR 04, 04A, and ITT 57 statewide contracts had covered previously. So this is going to provide first responder, public safety equipment, supplies, and related services in the 5 categories that have been covered by those 2 previous contracts: fire, EMS, police, marine, as well as two-way radio. As mentioned, the FIR 04, 04A contract, which had previously covered fire, EMS, police, and marine, that is expiring, as well as ITT 57, which had covered two-way radio. Those are both expiring, and so this will be replacing both of those contracts. And those 5 categories now will be combined into PSE01. Also, just to mention that FIR is no longer going to be a contract category for OSD. So PSE01 now will be replacing FIR category statewide contracts moving forward. So the contract terms for PSE01, we are going to have an effective date for this contract of January 1st of 2022. This is a 5-year initial term contract, so it will be effective through December 31st of 2026. We have included a single 2-year renewal option, so we would have a maximum contract term of 7 years, including both the initial 5-year and possible 2-year renewal option. The intention is to include multiple contract awards per category for each of the 5 categories, with a target number of awards of 75. That is in line with the total number of contract awards that exist between the ITT 57 and the FIR 04 and 04A contracts as they stand today. Next slide. Okay, so as mentioned, this particular contract will be broken down into 5 categories. The first 4 categories, if you're familiar with the FIR 04 contract, those are the same categories. So fire is category 1, EMS category 2, police category 3, and marine category 4. For those contracts, those are also going to be, or those categories will also include the supply and services. Previously, category 5 and had been this services contract, and the services category. And so we've lumped the services for each of those subject areas into the categories themselves. And now category 5 is two-way radio equipment, supplies and services. All of the categories, as mentioned, will include the related service, labor, maintenance, installation, as well as training and software in addition to equipment products. So they are all included within this single statewide contract and broken down within these 5 categories. Just as the idea behind this combination was to avoid some of the overlap that we were seeing between the 2 contracts that was not intended to happen. This gives us one very large contract, but it does allow us to maintain all of this public safety equipment scope together, and produces an improved statewide contract for buyers in order to be able to access all the different types of services and equipment that they may be looking at within the first responder, emergency services, public safety fields. Dan, is there anything else that you wanted to add at this point about that level of detail?
No, I think you encompassed everything that we wanted to hit on it. Again, just trying to avoid the confusion that was in place for ITT 57 and FIR 04 with the two-way radios specifically. So hoping a streamlined category, streamlined statewide contract like this will help alleviate those concerns that we received. Great,
thank you. Okay, so I think Dan, you grabbed the next slide if I remember correctly.
Correct. Yep. Good morning, everybody. So just a little bit more additional information on the new contract here. The procurement type is we have 3. It's original equipment manufacturer, OEM, value added reseller, or the VAR, and then catalog sales of equipment for everything else. The exclusions are pretty much carried over. If you're familiar with FIR 04, ITT 57, these are carried over from those contracts. So it's basically firearms, ammunition, less than lethal munitions, tasers and related training products, services, and accessories for all of those items. All vehicles too, no fire trucks or boats or anything of that like. Ambulances, those would be different contracts outside of this new PSE01 contract. And then finally, public safety broadcast and LTE only communications equipment would be found on ITT 72. Next slide, please. So again, this is something that doesn't change from statewide contracts. So if you're familiar with the contracts, this is all things that you're normal to, but the eligible entities that are open to selling or open to purchase off this contract are listed below. This is all in the RFR as well. What I wanted to call out for here is FIR 04 and ITT 57 were a contract that were heavily used by other states. And that will be the same for this contract. But if there's any incumbent vendors or if there's anybody with any other questions, they would have to ask to join this contract as soon as it goes into motion. So there's a simple process where they just need to request access to our purchasing agent to use the contract, and they would have to do that again for this new contract, even if they were already granted it from the prior contracts. And next slide, please.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to point this out. The strategic sourcing team for PSE01 is actually, I'm going to arguably say, one of the largest ones that OSD is dealing with at this time. And I wanted to just point out the reason that we've done this is because we do have such a varied group of services and equipment because of the size of the contract, because of the scope of the contract, including 5 major public safety areas. We wanted to make sure that we had both, we had heavy involvement in the RFR and the procurement review process from folks who are current users of the contract, people who have a procurement background within public safety, and also public safety users themselves who have experience in searching for, needing to purchase and otherwise use items that would be sold as part of this statewide contract. So if you look here through the SST, we have members of the fire community, members of the EMS community, members of the police community, Marine units, as well as users and technical specialists related to two-way radio. And as I mentioned, the purpose behind this is to make sure that we had a thorough subject matter heavy team of both users as well as procurement individuals within those main categories. Thank you.
So this is, if there's any takeaways from today's presentation, this is the next slide is the most important one here. Just the procurement calendar. So the deadline, this Susan touched upon this before, but this deadline for written questions through the COM-bias question answering is on August 17th at 3 p.m. So if you have any questions, download the RFR, read through the bidder's response form that's all attached in COM-bias in the bid document section. If you have any questions, please submit them through COM-bias question and answer. We can't answer them. Like if you ping me directly, I can't answer them. Everything has to go into COM-bias through that section. If you have any questions, just please put them in. So then the official answers, we'll be answering them about a week later on the 24th of August. That's an estimate, but we feel pretty confident we'll have those ready and answered by that point. The next two are the biggest things I wanted to touch upon. So the bid amendment deadline is basically the last date we can make any changes. So if there's any amendments, if anything comes up in the question and answering that we missed, and we will put it, there's opportunities to amend it. So I want to be just everybody be cognizant of these two dates, because if you download the RFR now, we don't anticipate there being any changes, but there could be, and the last date for us to make changes is on August 31st. And then the next biggest deadline is the deadline for the bid responses. So this one I would circle, I would mark it on your calendar. I would even try to get the bid in a day before, because after September 8th at 3 p.m., at 3:01, we cannot accept any bids. So if you submit a bid at 3:01, you would be disqualified. So the biggest advice I could say is, if you can do it a day early, that's perfect. And then if you want to tweak it the day of, that's perfect. However you want to do it, but 9/8 at 3 p.m., I would ingrain that in your brain and make sure that your bid response, if you want to participate, is submitted prior to that time. And again, another thing I want to kind of mention with the bid amendment deadline is if you submit, you can absolutely submit a bid prior to August 31st. What I would do after that point, if you do submit a bid before that, is to check if there were any amendments after that point, because if you submit it a week before and something changes minor, it could affect your bid. You won't necessarily be disqualified depending on what it is, but you would be using an older version of the RFR. So just something to keep in mind while you're working through the bid and all that stuff. So the notification for apparent successful bidders, we're looking at the end of October, specifically October 28th. And then the new contract starts on January 1st, 2022. Next slide. So for the bid response package, so this is what we're requiring of you to submit as part of your final bid. So just going to run quickly through the checklist here. One of the biggest things is the bidder's response form, as that incorporates a lot of the specifics that we're looking for. So bidder information about your company, pricing files, labor rates, the current environmental practices, products and practices form, That's all incorporated in the bidder's response form, and that's in an Excel file as well, which is, if you're familiar with other bids we've done, we've typically done this in Word, but our new format is in Excel, and it's a lot more streamlined and user-friendly. So hopefully that works a little bit better than past attempts. But as part of the bid response, the supplier diversity plan form will be included, and Dimitri will be covering the program in greater detail in a couple minutes here. The prompt payment discount form, manufacturer/dealer authorization letters, insurance certificates, Department of Revenue letter of good standing, and additional documents, any additional documents that you want us submitted for review. And as part of the bid, so as part of the RFR, this is all included in the RFR, we just have some vendor evaluation criteria. So you must complete the bidder's response form and submit all other required forms as part of your bid response. So we need all required forms has to be submitted prior to the 9/8 date. So just make sure when you're submitting it, I would even use the checklist that's in this RFR, or that was in this presentation of all the pertinent things, and just make sure you hit all those points and everything's included. If there's like a basic error in one of the forms, like if you list your company's name in the supplier diversity form instead of your partner, we can amend that after the fact, but we just need it to be submitted. There is an opportunity to do slight revisions after the fact, but everything has to be submitted. So as part of the business experience and viability, the price obviously is a big component here. Percentage discount off MSRP, service hourly rates, labor, repair, maintenance, and installation, discounts, prompt pay, volume, purchase, tiered, and dock delivery, and time-limited specials. And then as part of this, you get the environmental preferable practices form and the supplier diversity plan, which I touched upon in the prior slide.
All of this information is also listed thoroughly in the RFR, and even the checklist that was on this. There's also checklists within the RFR and the bidder response form to make sure that you're not missing and everything matches up. But just to reiterate, even within the fields, make sure that all the fields are filled out. Even if it's an NA, you need to have everything filled out according to the instructions on each of the forms.
Yeah, excellent point. I mean, even file naming conventions, we have a specific way we want you to name the files. Just read through the RFR, like I mentioned before. If you have any questions, if you're confused about anything, please just put it in the question and answering, because we don't want you to be, docked or have any negative repercussions because you missed something or you had questions. Next slide, please.
Okay, so I'm just going to really briefly mention the environmentally preferable products procurement program and the EPP form that is included in the bidder response form as one of the tabs within that form. That's a required document. The program was actually established through an executive order in 2009. And you can read through, if you'd like some more information, there's a link here on the guidance and the requirements and guidance of this program itself. The link is here. We also have the link included in the EPP form on the bidder response guide, as well as included within the RFR. So there's plenty of opportunity to do more reading up if it's something that's unfamiliar to you. But the main point of the environmentally preferable products program is to be agreeing to work with OSD and the strategic sourcing team to implement the most environmentally positive programs within the RFR. So we want to know what it is that you are doing within your company, the manufacturer, the entity itself, as it relates to certain initiatives, including energy, sustainability, and so these are the high-level areas within the program that all RFRs and all statewide contracts are looking at, so that we can try to be as environmentally responsible as possible in the Commonwealth. There are some specific areas that this RFR mentions, things that go into greater detail and more specific requirements and requests than might be in a different RFR because of the nature of the products that we are looking at. And so those are mentioned here at the bottom of this slide under less toxic specifications. The main areas where we're looking for either requirements or recommendations encouraging products fall under category 1, which is the fire category. The first one I'll mention is for firefighting foam. So one of the requirements that we have for this RFR is that if a vendor is going to be selling firefighting foam on this contract, that they must also, as part of their offerings, be selling green screen certified firefighting foam, which is also known as PFAS-free foam. That is an option so that if you are selling foam that does include PFAS in it, you have to also be selling green screen certified firefighting foam as well. That is a requirement of this contract. So if you submit a bid requesting to sell only traditional firefighting foam and you don't also have an offering for green screen certified, that's a requirement, so you would not be qualified to sell firefighting foam in that category. The second point has to do with firefighting gear. And right now, we are encouraging vendors to offer products that are made with less toxic chemicals. And in the event that further less toxic chemicals or PFAS-free options become available, that you are willing to offer those as they become available within the industry. Recognizing that the industry is still catching up in that area. We aren't requiring that because that's just not possible, whereas we can require the green screen certified firefighting foam because that is an area where the industry has already caught up. So those are just under less toxic specifications. That's just 2 areas that are specific to this contract that you wouldn't have seen in any other contracts in the Commonwealth. And if you've bid before using this EPP form, I just wanted to call those out specifically under the fire category 1.
Yep, and so as part of the contract, we have some performance measures for vendors. So I'll just read them through here. The minimum amount of business to stay on this contract is $500 every 2 years or 24 months, just to ensure that you're actively participating, trying to set the dollar amount as low as we can, knowing that some vendors and certain product categories have products and services that are cheaper than the others. So just to ensure that, staying active, we have a vibrant and active vendors on this contract. Their responsiveness to requests for quotes is something that I do want to highlight. That was something that we did have some issues on FIO4, FIO4A in regards to a lot of agency buyers just not getting a single response to some of their bids that were out there in Combi. So we do have some KPIs for that, which is listed in the RFR. Just want to highlight. I mean, if it's no bid, if you don't carry it, just no bid, so that the agencies are aware and they can move on and not pay you or have to wonder where they can get it from. So please refer to the RFR for that. Some of the other things we're going to be measuring is customer satisfaction in terms of surveys and complaints received, quarterly reporting requirements, your supplier diversity plan commitments and requirements from what you submit as part of your bid response. We're just going to be checking that to ensure that you're compliant throughout the life of the contract, and any other measures outlined by myself or the SST for this contract. Next slide, please. And finally, this is the last slide for us for the sourcing, for our part of it. Just reporting requirements. So we have quarterly sales, supplier diversity program expenditures, contract administration fee reports are all required from any successful bidders of this contract. If you're an incumbent vendor, you're familiar with this. If you're new to this, this is all outlined within the RFR. And again, Dimitri will outline the supplier diversity requirements in about 20, 30 minutes here. Vendors have to report on all sales activities with eligible entities each quarter. Again, SDP is measured annually, but reported quarterly. The quarterly reports are required even if you don't record a sale within that quarter. You just need to submit it with 0, essentially. It should be fairly quick and easy. This contract is subject to the 1% contract administration fee. Payments are made through a web-based secure payment center for the admin fee, and all reports are due 45 days after the quarter ends. And that is all I have.
Great. Thank you, Melissa and Dan. And now we have Catherine Thomas from training.
Good morning, everyone. What I want to do with you today is I just want to spend some time showing you some training resources that are available to you. Also, I want to show you where you can see the PSE01 bid through the public view. And for those of you that might be brand new to the process, also give you some tips regarding Combis registration. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up Combis. And for those of you who may not have been on Combis for a while, you do notice we have a brand new landing page. New picture, but the same information is on here. To sign in and to register in Combis, the 2 buttons in the upper right-hand corner. If I scroll down over towards the left, there's some links here that I wanted to point out to you under the buyer training resources. Excuse me, the vendor training resources. If I click on vendor training overview, it brings me over to the vendor training page, and then I can click on this button that will take me to a description of the classes. And I wanted to point out a couple classes that may interest you. The first one would be locate and respond to bids. This is a 1-hour live webinar where the facilitator will take you through Combis and go through step by step on what you would need to do to respond to the bid. This class is offered twice a month. And another class that I would recommend would be the essentials for the seller role. This is a more comprehensive vendor Combis class. Not only do we go over how to respond to a bid, but we also go over the profile to ensure that you have the correct commodity codes, and they spend some more time actually searching for bids as well. So below that is a link to the job aids for vendors, and basically anything that you would like to do in Combis, we have a job aid for. So there are job aids here. If you're brand new to Combis and you haven't registered, there's a job aid right here to assist you through that. And the last thing I wanted to point out was the buyer webcast. We have pre-recorded webcasts that you can listen to at convenience. And we do have a pre-recorded webcast for locate and respond. So if you do attend the webinar, which I highly suggest you do, but then you're ready to submit your bid and maybe you have some questions, not quite sure, you can always go and watch the pre-recorded webcast to get those questions answered. All right. Sorry, bear with me one moment. All right, so now I want to go ahead and show you the bid. So I'm going to go up to Combis and I'm going to click on the advanced button. And then from there, under select document type, I'm going to bring up bid solicitations. And then over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to type in PSE01 and click search. And bid comes up. And over here on the left is a hyperlink. So I click on this and it brings up the bid. A couple of things that I want to point out is that here is the bid opening date. And I know Dan had mentioned this. This is really, really critical. This is when you need to have your quote needs to be submitted. And that would be 9/8 at 3 o'clock. Other information here are the file attachments. So listed here is the RFR. And this, once again, is a document that you should download and spend time reading, because it's going to give you all the instructions, not only what the contract's about, but it's also going to spell out what you need to do to submit your quote. Underneath the RFR are all the attachments. All right. So below that, we have a description of the items that are on the contract, along with the commodity codes. And if I scroll down here to the bottom, I wanted to point this out to you. When you sign in and you get to the bid, this is exactly what you're going to see, but a little different. When you scroll down to the bottom of the bid, when you're signed in, right here, you're going to see a button that says Bid Q&A. And that is a button that you would click. It's going to take you over to the tab, and you can go ahead and submit your question. But you can only get to the bid Q&A when you're signed in and you're looking at the bid. All right. So for those of you that might be brand new to Combis, in order to submit a quote, you will need to register in Combis. Good news is, though, it will only take you about 10 minutes. There is some information that you need to gather ahead of time that you will need in order to complete your registration. That would include your tax ID number, and that would either be your FEIN or your Social Security number, depending on your business structure. This is the one piece of information that you cannot edit in Combis. So when you do type this number in, you want to double check it and make sure that you've entered it correctly. Other information that we're going to require is your company's physical address, email address, phone number, business structure, whether you're a corporation or a sole proprietorship, etc., and also your business type, whether you're for profit or nonprofit. And then you're also going to need to add commodity codes. And for this particular bid, these are the commodity codes. And you may want to check your vendor profile to ensure that you have these commodity codes in your profile. Because one of the nice things about Combis, the way it works is when a buyer puts in a bid and it has a commodity code that matches what's in your profile, you're going to receive automatically an email letting you know that that bid opportunity is there, and it's something that you may want to check out. I always like to talk about some best practices. We said this before, but really reading the RFR is critical. You know, it just, once again, it's going to include all the details, and you don't want to miss out on something that you should have done that maybe because you didn't could lead to disqualification. We suggest that you create a bid specific folder just to make things easier. You can have this folder on your desktop, you can put it on a thumb drive, wherever it's most convenient. But in this folder then, you can keep the RFR and all the attachments that come with it. You want to make sure that you're following the instructions on the RFR. There could be specific instructions as far as what you should name the documents and also maybe what the size requirements are. Also, make sure you review the documents before you upload. Maybe have another set of eyes take a look at it just to make sure that everything is accurate. And please, please, please get all this information in Combis before the bid opening date. I have to share a story now. I was on the phone with a woman who was in the process of submitting her quote in Combis, and she got to the summary tab, but there wasn't any button to push to submit her quote. And the reason for that is that she waited to the very last minute to submit her quote. So while she was going through all the tabs, putting in the information, the bid opening date had passed, and she wasn't able to submit it. So please don't let that happen to you. You could always start your bid and then take a break from it and come back. I would definitely suggest that you start your bid at least a few days before the bid opening date. And then, like I mentioned, we sure would like to see you in training. We do have a couple of those classes that I mentioned. Locate and respond to bids. The next one is, oh, that's my birthday, 8/26. Also, the essentials for the seller role is on 8/31. Another class that I didn't mention was demystifying the RFR. This is a great class to help you go through the RFR and break it down and give you some pointers as far as the information that you're looking at. There's links here to our pre-recorded webcasts, how to locate and respond, and also vendor registration, as well as links to all the job aids, including how to create a quote and using the Q&A tab within Combis. If you have any questions, you can certainly reach training through this email, and hopefully we'll see you in class. Thanks.
Thanks, Catherine. So now, bear with me here. Next up, we have Dmitry Nikolaev from the Supplier Diversity Office.
Hello, and thanks so much for having us. Today, I will talk about the Supply Diversity Program, which is required for all the bidders participating in this contract. And just to explain who the Supply Diversity Office is, it actually used to be part of the Operational Services Division. So if you were part of the previous statewide contract, you probably knew us as a unit of OSD. Today, the Supply Diversity Office is the state's newest executive agency, but our goals are the same, and our collaboration and partnership with the sourcing unit at OSD obviously continues. Next slide. So let's actually start by discussing what we mean by supply diversity. We define supply diversity as a business practice of consistently including diverse businesses in an organization's business activities. The key words for us are consistently, because this practice is only effective if it is consistent business practice with a responsible individual or unit, and more or less, and more on that a little bit later, and businesses. Because supply diversity is different from workforce diversity. Workforce diversity has to do with hiring, promoting, and retaining diverse individuals within the company's staff. And supply diversity relates to how your company engages other companies and organizations in business-to-business relationships. So this ability to incorporate supply diversity into contract performance and overall company operations is actually a very significant component of the value the Commonwealth expects from its contractors. And that's why I'm presenting to you today, and why we expect you to participate in the program. So what is the Supply Diversity Program? Next slide. So the mission of the SDP is to promote equality and diversity in state contracting. The way it works is that on an annual basis, our office, the Supply Diversity Office, sets spending goals for departments, which require them to engage diverse and small businesses in their operations. These goals can be met in two ways. By directly contracting with certified diverse contractors that themselves certified as minority, woman, veteran, and other diverse business categories. Or in addition, agencies can meet their spending goals through indirect spending. This is the type of spending where the agency's prime contractors, like yourselves potentially, engage certified diverse subcontractors and other business partners, and then report how much they spent back to the agency. We call that indirect spending. So to facilitate this type of spending, SDP partnerships are required for all non-construction contracts by executive agencies. This is one of them. And basically, all this requirement applies to this procurement and all companies that want to bid on this contract. Next slide. So what are the key requirements for all of you? There are 3 such requirements. All bidders must propose a percentage of their contract sales to be spent with certified diverse companies. We refer to the commitment, this percentage, as your SDP commitment, and the diverse companies as SDP partners. After award, all contractors will be expected to report spending with SDP partners on a quarterly basis for the entire duration of the contract. And all SDP partners utilized by your companies must be listed in one of the 2 directories identified in this presentation. Those are the SDO directory, the directory that we provide, and the U.S. Departments of Veteran Affairs databases. I'll show them to you in a little bit. So when we say all, it really means all. The SDP language in the RFR applies to all bidders, even if your company individually does not expect to make a lot of money, even if your company does not have SDP partners at the moment, and even if your company itself is a certified diverse company. This is correct. Even if your company itself is certified as a diverse business, you will still be required to do business with another diverse business. Okay. Next slide. So in terms of documentation, what do we expect from you? At the time of the bid, you will be expected to complete and submit the SDP plan form. On this form, you will state what percentage of your company's sales under this contract you will direct to be spent with diverse business partners. And the form also is a way for you to describe your consistent practice of inclusion of SDP partners and sort of communicating that information to us. If you are awarded as a contractor, you will be expected to use the OSD's vendor report management system, the VRM, to submit quarterly reports on your spending with SDP partners. So let's go through the form so that you would understand what exactly is expected in your bid response. Next slide. So you can already see that there's some sections that are marked required and other sections that are marked as optional. While the word optional does suggest that it's up to you to decide whether to complete these sections, please note that you may receive additional points at the discretion of the sourcing team for completing these options, these optional, or as we call, desirable sections. Next slide. Let's start with the first section. The first section is simple. It asks you for a company name, your total annual gross revenue for the entire company, and for 2 contacts. One is the main contact for the bid, and the second one is the contact to engage regarding supply diversity reporting later. Next slide. The next section is a bit more involved. This is where we ask you to describe your consistent practice of including diverse businesses in your company operations. What are the components of any consistent practice? I hope you will agree with me that business practices in general succeed when you have a clearly stated purpose or goal, and when there is a specific department or person responsible for implementing that practice, right? In addition to that, specifically supply diversity initiatives succeed when you know what types of diverse businesses you're trying to focus on or engage, what types of business opportunities you will seek diverse businesses for, and how you will engage these diverse businesses to bring them on board. So these are, when you look at the RFR language that sort of corresponds to this section of the plan, you will see exactly those kind of questions. And this is what we're asking you to give us or to think about. So finally, it's also beneficial if your company has a supply diversity policy, especially if the policy is public. So information provided in this section does not have to be lengthy, but it does have to demonstrate that your company has a system in place to actually deliver on your supply diversity commitment. Next slide. A few more words about this commitment. This is the subject of section 3 of the form. And the commitment is, as I mentioned, expressed as a percentage of your contract sales or whatever you earned the contract to be spent with SDP partners. We will discuss the meaning of the lines that you see, subcontracting, ancillary products and services, a little bit later. But the important part in this section is that the sum of those percentages, your total SDP commitment, will become a legally binding contract requirement after signing the contract. It's also important to note that the minimum total SDP commitment is 1%. So to help you understand how to set your company supply diversity commitment, let's take a break from looking at the form and actually look at the partnerships in a little bit more depth. Next slide. First, let's look at the types of businesses that are eligible to be your SDP partners. I mentioned a few of these before, but let me go through them specifically now. The types of certified businesses that are eligible to your SDP partners are minority business enterprises and nonprofit organizations, women business enterprises and nonprofit organizations, veteran and service disabled veteran-owned businesses, disability-owned businesses, and LGBT-owned businesses. Some of these can be certified by the SDO, by our department, while others may be certified by organizations whose certifications the SDO recognizes. There are a couple of types of certifications that you're likely to see, but that do not really contribute to meeting your supply diversity commitments. They are DBE, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, which is a federal certification category that's only relevant for federally funded construction projects, and PBE, Portuguese Business Enterprise, which is a category only relevant for certain state-funded highway projects. So remember this when you search for SDP partners. And also remember that you still have to search for SDP partners even if you yourself are certified. Next slide. While we're very specific about what types of businesses are eligible to be your partners, we're very flexible about how you engage them. First of all, your SDP partner does not need to be a subcontractor. You may engage diverse businesses to meet your general business needs outside of your business relationship with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. In addition, your SDP partner does not have to be located in Massachusetts. When you look at our SDO directory or the Veteran Service Administration directory, you will see that we both certify vendors nationwide, and all of them are eligible. And finally, your relationship with your SDP partner does not need to be long-term. Just like any business-to-business relationship, this can be long-term, short-term, occasional, or even incidental. One-time purchases, such as things like you see on the slide, such as business cards, office equipment, or fire extinguisher testing, also qualify. So the key requirements that still apply, though, is that your partners have to be certified or recognized by the Supply Diversity Office, and that your spending with all of those partners combined at the end of the fiscal year must be equal or more than your SDP commitment. Next slide. And note on subcontracting. So this is a type of relationship where the certified diverse partner assists your company in providing goods and services offered on contract. It can be providing goods and services for resale, providing a process or a component for a product or service that you sell, or actually providing a portion of the scope of services in the contract. The slide has some examples of this, but basically, if you're engaging a company in providing products or services directly related to something that you're doing for the Commonwealth, that is subcontracting. Next slide. I have also mentioned the ancillary products or services as a type of relationship. So this is a type of relationship where the SDP partner supplies products or services for general business operations. Examples include bookkeeping and accounting, IT services, administrative and clerical services, construction and trade services, landscaping, transportation. These are just some of the more popular partnership types that we see, but when you look at our directories, you will see that we have potential partners for virtually any business need. And if you can't find a partner just by searching, you can always email some of the companies that come close, potentially in their descriptions, to meeting what you require, and see if they have the product or service that you need. So now let's come back to the form and see how to apply this information. Next slide. Right. This right. You preempted me. So section 4 of the SDP platform requires you to propose one or more SDP partners that meet the program criteria that I just outlined. So for each partner, if you look at the columns of the form, we're asking for the company name, the business-to-business relationship type, which is subcontracting or ancillary, the partner certification category, the organization that issued the certification, for example, the Supply Diversity Office or the VA, or potentially another certifier, and the product or service that you expect to be purchasing from that diverse partner. The form also allows you to provide up to 3 years of previous spending with the SDP partner company or companies. In our opinion, past spending with diverse companies is a good indication of a prime contractor's ability to meet SDP commitments. As a result, bidders may actually receive additional points for such prior spending. While I mentioned that your partners may be certified by organizations other than the SDO, in order for this spending, in order for future spending, kind of spending under the contract to count, your SDP partner must actually be recognized or certified by SDO or the Department of Veteran Affairs once you get awarded. I highly recommend that you actually read the RFR section on the Supply Diversity Program to get additional information on this specific issue, on the recognition of different partners, but also on everything that I discuss in this presentation. Next slide. So naturally, there are business relationships that are neither subcontracting or ancillary. And as a result, they can't be included into the sections that we just discussed. So these include mentor-protege programs, technical and financial assistance to diverse businesses, participation in joint ventures, and basically other types of relationships. You can see that they're less typical, and some of them actually do not involve payments from your company to the business partner's company. So the SDP plan form actually provides space for you to describe these types of initiatives because we do realize that they're valuable to your SDP partners. However, you should note that when you that they're not going to be reportable or they're not going to be counted towards meeting your SDP commitment percentage that you entered in part 3 of the form. Next slide. And the final portion of the form requires you to just certify that the information provided on the form is accurate. Please do not convert this form to PDF. Submit it as an Excel attachment with the rest of your bid response. Next slide. Now that we've looked at the SDP plan form, let's talk briefly about the process for searching for valid SDP partners. So in order for your spending with an SDP partner to be valid for the purposes of the program after award, the partner must be listed in one of these 2 directories. The SDO directory of certified businesses, which is available on the SDO website and contains over 3,700 certified businesses in the categories that I mentioned earlier. This is the directory where you may also encounter companies that are not eligible. For example, the DBE companies or airport concession DBE companies or Portuguese business enterprises. So this is the directory where you have to make sure that your potential business partner is certified in at least one of the eligible categories. The second directory of available partners is the vendor information pages maintained by the US Veterans Administration. This directory contains more than 14,000 companies nationwide that are all certified as veteran-owned or service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. While the certification categories are worded, you can probably notice slightly differently from our state categories. All of those businesses are eligible to be your SDP partners. Next slide. In terms of a practical approach to kind of figuring out who the partners could be for your individual company, we suggest that you start by seeing whether any of your current suppliers already meet our program requirements. You can download our lists and check them against your suppliers. The second step is to see if any of your current suppliers can be certified. You can survey your diverse suppliers to see if any of them are 51% or more owned and controlled by a minority, female, veteran, disability, or an LGBT owner. Put those businesses in touch with the SDO and follow up with them until they get certified. It's your responsibility to ensure that these companies get certified. Note that the SDO also provides a certification self-assessment tool that can help any business to see if they may be eligible for certification. As you consider establishing new business relationships with companies that you find in directories as part of your participation in the SDP, please make it a consistent practice. Ask the individual or unit responsible for implementing supply diversity within your business to look for subcontracting and ancillary opportunities on an ongoing basis, on and outside of the contract with the state. Next slide. So your efforts are valuable to the supply diversity partners, and they're also valuable to the Commonwealth. They're part of our definition of best value. Once you receive all your bidders, or once we receive your responses, the evaluation criteria that we establish for the bid actually allocate at least a quarter of all of available evaluation points to the review of your SDP submission. So please be diligent in developing your SDP proposals, because no contract will be made to a vendor without an acceptable SDP plan. Afterward, you will be required to report on your spending quarterly. As you can tell, when you look back at the SDP plan, the purpose of the SDP plan really is not just to identify vendors who offer competitive SDP commitments, but really find those who can also demonstrate that they can meet those commitments. So please use the SDP plan to show that your company has done your research and has created the consistent business practice required to meet your commitment throughout the year, and demonstrate full contract compliance every year while you're on contract. So next slide. Before we wrap up, let me do a quick recap of the main points. Your company is required to complete and submit an SDP plan form. Your SDP plan details your company's efforts to partner with businesses that are certified as minority, women, veteran, service-disabled veteran, disability, and LGBT owned. Your SDP commitment is the percentage of sales your company will spend with certified diverse businesses during the term of the contract. Subcontracting on this contract is not, as part of the SDP, is not required. Your SDP partner may provide ancillary products and services. Your partners are not required to be Massachusetts-based. You can also add or remove them during the life of the contract. Your SDP plan form will be evaluated just like any other part of your proposal, and at least a quarter of all available evaluation points will be allocated to the review of this form. You may earn additional points for completing items that are marked as optional on the form. Subject to the number of points is subject to the discretion of the strategic sourcing team. And finally, afterward, your company will be required to report spending with SDP partners on a quarterly basis, and your compliance will be evaluated on a Massachusetts fiscal year basis. So next slide. If you have questions about the SDP, please do not hesitate to reach out to us at SDP mass.gov. We, of course, will not be able to help you with questions related to the specific solicitation or help you put together your proposal for this solicitation, but we can help you understand the program better, assist you in finding SDP partners, or connect your uncertified partners with certification resources. We look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. So I just want to bring your attention to the resource slide, which is included in the handouts that you can download. If you do need assistance, you can always contact the help desk. And at this point, that does conclude the presentation for today. We just want to thank all the presenters and thank you for all the vendors for attending today. So I hope you have a great day. Bye.
Thank you all very much.